Good morning, public admin students. This is a recording for my PAD 3003 Intro to Public Administration course. Yeah, I haven't actually gotten a chance to record a lot of videos for you folks yet, so I wanted to sit down, take a little time, and kind of touch base. Let you know I have been reading all of your discussion posts. I will, interject a few comments here and there. I'll add some observations or whatever. But for the most part, just given the sheer volume of comments that we have, um, it's just time prohibitive for me to actually address everybody's comments. So don't feel, just if I don't comment directly to you regarding your comments. If you embed something in there, a little sniglet or something like that, a little joke or whatever, and just know that I do read every single one of them, and so I've had students test me on that, and yes, I do read them. So anyway, um, our going back, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just kind of recap all the major discussions, kind of let you know my thoughts on them, and maybe clarify some points. For example, the first module we had talked about the concept of public interest. What is the public interest? Remember, we were talking. The scenario was like a big wholesale store, and they needed more parking, and yet Jeopardy was a local community church. So does the church offer public interest? What's in the best public interest? Usually that particular discussion elicits a lot of highly emotional comments. It was actually somewhat tame this semester. A lot of times, so people are highly defensive of the church. Hey, don't take my church away. This is the kind of the lifeblood of our community. So, that was the whole point of the exercise, is to show, on the one hand, you've got the economical, the economics argument. It's the private entity is paying taxes, the nonprofit, the church, in this case, faith-based organization, however you want to phrase that, they're not paying taxes, but they're offering um, service to the community in other areas. So as a practitioner, as you go out, you're going to have to figure out, gauge what people want, So those are the tough decisions. That's why you're going to be making the big bucks, right? So good work on covering all the bases on that particular topic. The next discussion, or the next module, had a discussion on efficiency, effectiveness, and equity. In the textbook, it started talking about efficiency and effectiveness, and the balance between those. I always add in equity because I feel that's, on equal footing with those other two concepts. Private sector, a lot of times people are beaten up on transit. To use an example, they say, transit doesn't pay its own way. Why do we have public transit? Well, there's a lot of reasons why you have to have public transit. It's, if anything, at the basic level, it's the lesser of two evils. It's like, if you don't have public transportation, then you're going to have all these people that are out of work because they can't get to places, or you're going to maybe even have more congestion on the streets, whatever. So, and when I said the lesser of two evils, I'm talking about you either pay a little more, like government will say, okay, we're going to have to, help you guys out and, pick up some of the tab, or else we're going to be stuck with a larger tab, which would be, less tax revenue from higher unemployment, which will tear at the fabric of the community, on and on and on. So, they're just things that you can't really always put it in a dollars and cents framework. So equity, understanding that we have to take care of the people on the lower rungs of the socioeconomic ladder, help them out so that they can contribute, because it takes everybody to contribute to a society. Think about when the first explorers came over to the New World, Roanoke colonies up in the Carolinas and Virginia, whatever, and everybody wanted to be a chief. Nobody wanted to be an Indian. Everybody wanted to be the leader of that community. Nobody wanted to go out there and plant crops, and they about starved, right? So it takes everybody at every level to make a community. And so, with the efficiency, effectiveness, and equity, make sure you consider all of those as you go out to your agency and do whatever you're going to do in the public service field. Make sure you consider all of this equally. Forms of local government, that's another discussion. Always makes the exam, so make sure you're very familiar with that. Forms of local government, is it going to be a commission, with just commissioners on there? It's going to be commission, the executive in addition to that, or is it going to be an administrator? What are we talking here? I actually teach down at Osceola County. We have a Board of County Commission, okay, and then we also have Don Fisher, who's the county manager. Now, he's not an elected position. He actually is appointed by the commissioners. So he functions more as an administrator. He's not beholden to the citizenry per se, not directly. The citizens vote for the commissioners hire the administrator. That's how that works. Good and bad. Now, it's not like it's a a cut and dry thing where, oh, this is bad or whatever. Sometimes you need that insulation. So that way the citizens don't always cry, well, I'm going to vote you out of office if you don't do what I say. Sometimes you need to be insulated and say, hey, I'm going to do the best job regardless of what everybody else is saying. That's my thought on it. You still have democracy working, albeit indirectly, right? Orange County, which is where I actually hang my hat, we actually have the Board of County Commissioners, and then we also have an elected mayor who serves on that commission. So in that regard, I actually have two elected officials working for me. I have the mayor that represents the entire county as a whole, and then I have the commissioners that represent each district. So I have one that represents my district, and then the mayor that represents the county as a whole. So it just really depends. I would defer you to go to the readings and make sure you're familiar with each of those forms of local government. Shrinking government. Here's another one that, another discussion that you guys did pretty well on. I liked it. I used, of course, my wife. I used my family all the time in my lectures. My wife, she used to manage the print shop over the jail, Osceola County Jail. And while she might have had an unfair advantage, were she to go out and market, to, the general public, hey, we've got the ability in this print shop to undercut everybody's prices. Now, you look at it like this perspective, from the perspective of a local business, they're thinking, hey, I've cut all my expenses. This is going to be great. Except for those people like Kinko's or whatever, it's going to undermine their business. And so it's not really responsible government to do that. So the policy over the print shop was to only market to nonprofits and other local government agencies. Well, that's fair. So that way you encourage the growth of your local businesses while still, offering vocational, experience to the inmates, help them to learn a legitimate, a legal job as opposed to, whatever they were in there for. So here's the other thing with the shrinking governments. Whenever you create bureaucracies, this is something that wasn't necessarily in the forefront of this conversation, but when you create bureaucracies, we're talking shrinking government, right? When you create and expand government, you create a new organization, a new branch or whatever, those last forever. You always have to remember that. You think, okay, if you think in the short term, yeah, it's, we might need this. Remember, we created the Department of Homeland Security after 9/11. So I'm not saying anything bad about that. I'm saying that was the creation of a new department. Now, now you've got all these employees that are working within that department. So it would be very, very difficult to get rid of that department because you've got all these people that are going to champion that, hey, we need this department. don't cut our funding, whatever. So once you establish it, it's pretty much there forever. Just so you know, it's really hard to get rid of. It's really hard to trim the fat government. So just always keep that in the back of your mind. Last one, gerrymandering. This is something I always have fun with it. It's like a little puzzle, you know. The idea is you've got the little red dots and the blue dots. Remember, this is a community, you know, red and blue. I just use red and blue, you know, whatever. I know Republicans are typically red. The liberals are typically blue. That's just, dominant paradigm. But I just used a real simple version of, hey, if you've got a community, you've got these people that are the Democrats are on the inside. Usually that's how they are found. Usually your more liberal-minded folks are in your urban areas, and your more conservative-minded folks on the periphery, out in the rural areas. It doesn't always hold true, but generally that's how things are. Look at Buddy Dyer, the Democrat, mayor of Orlando. Look at Teresa Jacobs, Republican. She's mayor of Orange County, which encompasses everything else. Now, how is it that the Orange County Commission is made up, majority Republicans, even though the Democrats outnumber the Republicans? It's all contingent on how you draw these lines. There's a lot of power to be had in that. Don't underestimate drawing the lines on the map. So that's where it can make a big difference. So first of all, I wanted to show you how that affects political power in that regard. But then also when we talked about, was it the at-large versus the single member districts, that affects other, not just necessarily the political parties, but the people that live there, the residents. Like, for example, again, I work down here in Osceola County, just outside of Kissimmee. Used to be that, it was at-large voting here in Osceola County. In other words, you voted for the commissioners as a whole. Every voter in the county voted for all the commissioners and the mayor. Well, not the mayor, but like I just said, it's a county administrator, right? County manager. But what happened was, with the majority white population, the minority groups never really had a chance to get any kind of representation on the local government. That was not fair. Now, if you look at a map of Osceola County, you can see Buenaventura Lakes, Point Siena. Those are heavy Hispanic areas, communities. If you divided up the county into districts, which is what they ultimately did, now all of a sudden, okay, they might be a minority, as opposed, when you look at the county as a whole. But if you were to look at a particular district, maybe the Hispanic community actually has the majority there. This enhances their likelihood to be able to elect someone that is more in line with their particular interests. That's why they did this. So look at the at-large versus the single member districts. This took a lot of money to make this change happen. There are a lot of people that were not, in favor of that. Why? Because they stood to lose power, right? At the end of the day, it was more equitable. It was more representative of the people that live here. So anyway, I'm not here advocating for it. I'm just saying, if you look at the numbers on the map, or you look at the census, you can kind of see how that works out. So anyway, those are some of the discussions that we've had thus far in the course. I hope you're enjoying the course. I try to balance the degree of rigor that I have. I try to make it fun. I try to make it meaningful. I try to bring in real world scenarios, real life examples from my own personal life. As I said in my intro, my instructor intro, I work for a nonprofit. I work for the Center on Public Nonprofit Management, doing research with Dr. Capuccio, Dr. Hawkins, and Dr. Rivera over in sociology. I worked for 20 years in private sector, so I bring a private sector perspective as well. I've been on the other side of the table. I've been on the government side, and I've been on the private sector side. So I hope to bring those to you, those perspectives, and I hope to make that our class a little more interesting. Keep in mind, we've got, I think, another module, and then we've got our midterm exam. I'll try to get back in touch with you before then. Maybe we can figure out like another video review. I've done that in other classes. I've gotten favorable feedback from the students, so we'll see how that works. Have a nice day now.